Welcome to the Get Published podcast, sponsored by Brodie Consulting Group. To get more information about our publishing and coaching services, go to getpublishedpodcast.com. Hello, I am Paul Brodie, and thank you for joining us for another episode of the Get Published podcast, where we help authors get published with a proven system that works. Today, we're being joined by Chuck Polin, author of Selling Professional Services the Sandler Way. Chuck, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
All right, are you ready to get started?
I am.
Excellent. Question number one. What is the one piece of advice that you would give to a first-time author who is currently writing their book?
I would say the most important thing is to dot your I's and cross your T's. I would say the biggest challenges that we had were legal. Contracts and authorizations and releases and things of that nature. And there seemed to be legal entanglements all the way through.
And what were some of those challenges? We mentioned legal entanglements, and how were you able to deal with those?
So our book is basically geared toward folks who never thought they'd have to sell. The subtitle is "Nobody Ever Told Me I Had to Sell." So consequently, we had stories and case studies from a number of attorneys, accountants, architects, IT folks, and we had the book is divided into two parts. The first is stories, and the second talks about the Sandler selling system. So in those stories, we used real people, we used their names, and we let them describe what their experiences were. And we had gotten releases signed from all of them. And in one case, a young lady who was with a law firm, her managing partner had signed off on it. We had an initial run of about 500 copies of the book. The book came out, started to sell it, distribute it, and about 3 weeks in, her chief marketing officer saw it and threw a fit. And we sent him a copy of the release that we had from his boss, and he said he didn't care that if we continued to distribute the book, that he would be forced to take action against that attorney and pursue means against us. So we literally had to pull back the first copies, go out and get the initial copies that were distributed, and we ended up rewriting a fair of that first half of the book, taking out all the names to make sure that we didn't have any future legal ramifications. And it was a pain and probably took 6 weeks longer than it had to. That was one legal issue. The second legal issue was Sandler published the book and wanted to distribute it, but we had given a copy to the regional Barnes & Noble people, and they liked it, and they wanted to distribute it. And the negotiations between the corporate attorneys, their attorneys, and then our attorneys got involved, took close to a year, and we ended up not distributing it through them at all, simply because by the time the negotiations were done, it wasn't a new book anymore. So if we had looked at that in advance, we would have been better prepared and probably could have had a better initial launch.
I appreciate you sharing that, because I know sometimes when you do get into this type of different case studies and examples, that even if you have the releases, sometimes people are going to get offended, and then you've got a whole different rabbit hole, so to speak, to have to go down.
So, and that's exactly what happened to us, and we just decided to go the safety route and pull all the names totally out of it.
Well, Chuck, I'd like to ask you, what do you feel is the hardest part about getting published?
So that really was not a challenge for us at all, because they came to us and had asked us if we would write the book. And I guess it was the third time we were approached about writing a book, and each case folks came to us to say, you have experience doing this. A lot of people don't. Would you please write it? So that really wasn't a challenge we faced.
And was this a traditional publishing company that approached you?
So we had two traditional publishing companies that approached us, and then Sandler, and we're a franchise of theirs, approached us and said, look, we think that you're unique in what you do within the system and across the country, and they agreed to finance everything and give us editors, copy people, things of that nature. So we decided to go that route because we knew who we were dealing with, and I had heard too many horror stories.
Absolutely. Well, for our next question, I'd like for you to share a marketing strategy that you have used in your book launch that you felt worked well.
So that happened, like a lot of things, by accident. So the book was published, and we had several folks that were anxious for the book put reviews on Amazon, and then other people started to do it, and then we saw that we were on the Amazon business book bestseller list, and we suggested to other folks as they bought the books that maybe they wanted to write a review as well. And we probably ended up getting 40, 50, 60 reviews. And each time we got more reviews, the book sales went up, and we stayed on that business bestseller list for about 6 months. And we're now 3.5 years in, and we still sell, depending on the month, anywhere from, I guess the low's probably about 70 books, but 2 months ago we sold 500.
And what do you feel is the main thing that's keeping the momentum going for your launch after all this time?
I think there are a couple things. Number one, there are certain companies, law firms, accounting firms, where several of the folks within their firms have read the books, liked them, and brought us to their management. And in some cases, management has bought a number of their books for all of their employees. So I can't say that while we have a number of individuals buying them on Amazon and ebooks, etc., we have firms. We just had a national accounting firm buy 150 books this month for a number of their partners. So the type of book that it is sustainable, and I think the message is not going to get old. So consequently, we've already seen that the book has legs, and initially when we were published the book, they told us realistically for a book of this type to expect 1,000 to maybe 2,000 books sold at the outside, and we've exceeded that 15, 20 times that.
Nice. So it sounds like a lot of your business as well are these companies that are buying the book in bulk, so to speak, or multiple copies,
yes,
and then giving it to their employees.
Yep. That's exactly right.
Well, let's talk about your favorite book. So what is your favorite book, and what was the number one thing that you learned from it?
So I'm going to go with a business book. The author was Keith Ferrazzi, and the book was called Never Eat Alone. And I find that that's the ultimate book of how to make and leverage connections and grow either your business or your personal growth. And it was extremely informative, and I had the opportunity, I guess about a year after we wrote the book, to do a program with him in Manhattan, and that was a lot of fun to meet one of my favorite authors.
So the number one thing that you learned from that, what would you feel would be the main thing that really stands out?
That it's all about relationships, and if you want to be successful, you really need to grow sustainable relationships where you can help people, and the more that you help people, there's an old saying, what goes around comes around.
Yes.
I think that's the message of the book, is that the more you help people, the more people want to help you.
Absolutely. I'm a big believer in karma myself. Always do good, help others, because it's always going to come back in a great way.
Yeah, that's the message of his book, and it has stayed with me over the years, and it's hopefully something that we live by.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with you. For our final question, what is your favorite quote and why?
So we're part of a franchise, and the fellow that founded the franchise, his name was David Sandler, and he's passed away 20-plus years ago. But I'll never forget, and it's in his book, he had a saying, which is that selling is a Broadway play played by a psychiatrist. And I just love that quote, and I find it's true every single day in just about every single transaction I'm involved in, that you need to be a psychiatrist to help understand people and what their motivations are. And I think it's a lot of fun, and I think it's true.
That's a great quote. I like that. Well, Chuck, I want to thank you for being a guest on the show. What is the best way for people to find you online?
Online, two ways. Our website is trainingresourcegroup.com, and there's lots of information, and it's a good way to reach me. My email address is chuck.polin, Polin, at Sandler, SANDLER.com. More than happy to answer questions and, again, try and help people. And if we can't help them, maybe guide them to a resource that can.
Well, Chuck,
like yours.
Thank you, Chuck. I appreciate that. And thank you again for being a guest on the show. And I wish you all the best in your author journey ahead.
Now, thanks very much. And please continue to help people publish.
Thanks again for joining us today. To learn more about how to get your book published with a proven system that works, grab a free copy of my book at getpublishedpodcast.com.